Charles Oliveira, one of the UFC's most decorated lightweights, is currently facing backlash after comments he made regarding potential replacements for Rafael Fiziev. Fiziev was forced to withdraw from their highly anticipated matchup at UFC Rio due to injury. With Oliveira left without an opponent, several lightweight contenders publicly offered to step in. However, according to Oliveira, many of those same fighters backed out once the UFC actually reached out to them. One of the names mentioned was Mateusz Gamrot, a highly skilled wrestler and grappler. When asked about the possibility of fighting Gamrot on short notice, Oliveira didn't appear particularly interested. He explained that he had been preparing for a very specific type of opponent. His camp was focused on a striker, someone with a strong striking background who could also defend takedowns. Facing a completely different style just 2 weeks before the fight, Oliveira admitted, would require him to change his entire game plan. Oliveira clarified his stance, saying, "With only 2 weeks to go until the fight, I would have to completely change my strategy. That's very complicated. I don't want to be taken off the card. I specifically asked to be on this card, and I've been training like crazy for it. But if they offer me a guy nobody knows, how am I supposed to prepare for that? It's a completely different style. Yes, it could be a good matchup because Gamrot is a wrestler and grappler, but it's not the style I've been preparing for these past 2 months. Game planning matters." Gamrot quickly fired back on social media, addressing Oliveira directly. On X, formerly Twitter, Gamrot wrote, "I hear you're worried about my style. Even though you had a full training camp and I had none, I'm still ready to step into the cage. 2 weeks is enough for me. I'm already here, no excuses. Let's do this." He even followed up with a photo mocking Oliveira, where Charles was shown asking, "Where's my opponent?" while Gamrot held a chicken with the caption, "Challenge accepted." Gamrot added, "The Lion holds the record for the most ground finishes in UFC history, but he's afraid to step in with a grappler." The MMA community had strong reactions to this exchange. Many fans pointed out that the situation looked bad for Oliveira, especially after he had previously criticized fighters who refused short-notice bouts. One fan wrote, "It only looks bad because Charles claimed everyone was ducking him. Then Gamrot accepts on short notice, and Charles suddenly backs down. That's blatant ducking." Another fan added, "I love Oliveira, but this is embarrassing. He wasn't prepared for a grappler. Gamrot hasn't been preparing for anyone at all. Did Charles forget his jiu-jitsu? This just looks like excuses." Others highlighted the hypocrisy. Charles was just blasting fighters who turned down short-notice fights in Brazil. Now he's doing the exact same thing. You can't make this up. At the heart of the backlash is the perception that Oliveira, a former UFC lightweight champion known for taking tough fights, may be picking and choosing opponents at a critical point in his career. While Oliveira insists his concerns are about strategy and preparation, critics argue that a fighter of his caliber should be ready for anyone, anytime. This situation has sparked a heated debate in the MMA world. Is Oliveira justified in refusing a completely different stylistic matchup on 2 weeks' notice, or is this truly a case of him ducking a dangerous grappler like Gamrot? Fans and analysts alike are divided, and all eyes are now on the UFC to see who Oliveira will end up facing at UFC Rio. What do you think about this controversy? Is Charles Oliveira protecting his preparation, or damaging his reputation by avoiding Gamrot? Before moving on to the next news, we have a quick request for you. We're always working to improve our content and truly value your support. If you could take a moment to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon, it would mean a lot to us. That way, you'll never miss an update. Move on to another news. UFC bantamweight contender Merab Dvalishvili is widely recognized for his relentless fighting style, endless pace, and iron will inside the octagon. Fans and fighters alike know him as the Machine, a nickname earned from his high-pressure performances and unmatched cardio. But as Daniel Cormier recently discovered in an interview, that fearless attitude has been with Merab since childhood, sometimes to a dangerous degree. During their conversation, Cormier revealed that he had read about a shocking story from Merab's past. When he was just 6 years old, he nearly drowned in a river. At first, Cormier couldn't believe it, but Merab confirmed the story, explaining how a playful moment with his brother turned into a life-threatening situation. Merab recalled that his older brother was swimming in the river while he stood by the bank. Wanting to join in, and perhaps tease his brother, young Merab jumped into the water, despite not knowing how to swim. It was a reckless decision, and within seconds the powerful current dragged him into deeper waters. The water was so fast, Merab explained. The current just pulled me under, and I couldn't fight it. I was stuck under the water, and I couldn't scream for help. All I could do was grab onto a big rock at the bottom of the river to stop myself from being pulled away. While he clung desperately to the rock beneath the surface, Merab's other brother noticed that something was wrong. Panicked, his brother screamed for help. In that terrifying moment, Merab admits he wasn't sure if he would survive. "I didn't know how to swim, so I just held on and hoped I could stay alive until someone helped me," he said. "I remember hugging that rock as tightly as I could. The current kept trying to pull me away, but I didn't let go." Fortunately, his brother was able to reach him in time and drag him out of the water. It was a close call, one that could have ended tragically, but instead of leaving him traumatized, the experience sparked a determination in Merab. Not long after, he decided to learn how to swim so he would never again feel that helpless in the water. When Cormier asked why he would ever jump into a river without knowing how to swim, Merab laughed and admitted, "I was just crazy. Even as a kid, I always wanted to test myself. That's who I am." The story perfectly captures the essence of Dvalishvili's personality: fearless, sometimes reckless, but always resilient. The same attitude that nearly cost him his life as a child now fuels his success as one of the UFC's most relentless fighters. Today, Merab carries that childhood lesson with him into every fight. Just as he once clung to a rock at the bottom of a river to survive, he now clings to his unshakable willpower inside the octagon, no matter how strong the current against him. Move on to another news. Former UFC fighter and outspoken analyst Chael Sonnen is never one to hold back, and his latest target is none other than Conor McGregor. Sonnen recently addressed McGregor's bizarre announcement that he was withdrawing from a supposed presidential run in Ireland, an announcement that Sonnen insists was pure fabrication. On his YouTube channel, Sonnen wasted no time in dismantling the idea that McGregor had ever been a legitimate candidate. "Conor McGregor has withdrawn his pending plans to be the president of Ireland," Sonnen began, before pointing out the obvious flaw in the claim. "There's just one problem with that. Conor, you were never running for president of Ireland." According to Sonnen, there was no official campaign, no fundraising, and no supporters to return contributions to. "You didn't suspend a campaign," he said bluntly. "You never had one. There weren't any raised funds. There were no supporters. This wasn't real. None of it was real." Sonnen then turned his attention to McGregor's lifestyle, questioning how the former UFC champion could even attempt to portray himself as a serious political figure. "When you're blowing coke, getting blown by strippers, running in and out of court dates for those very things, and oh, by the way, tying a dumbbell to your private parts, it's a little hard to act as though you're the guy that consults with family before making decisions," Sonnen said, cutting deep with his trademark bluntness. To Sonnen, McGregor's claim that he had discussed his campaign with his family before pulling out was one of the most absurd aspects of the entire situation. "You're very clearly the guy that does whatever he feels like," Sonnen continued. "This whole, 'I talk to my family' routine was laughable. It was absurd. But even that wasn't the most absurd part. For Sonnen, the most ridiculous element of McGregor's so-called campaign was that the fighter seemed to believe he owed the public an explanation for ending it." "An explanation to who?" Sonnen asked rhetorically. "The parliament never recognized you. There was no vote. There was no ballot. There was no visit to their version of the Secretary of State's office. There was nothing." Sonnen's criticism highlights the gap between McGregor's celebrity persona and the reality of politics. While McGregor may be one of the most charismatic and successful fighters in UFC history, his off-the-cuff announcement about entering and exiting a presidential race in Ireland struck many, including Sonnen, as little more than attention-seeking. For Chael Sonnen, this episode is yet another example of McGregor's unpredictable behavior, fueled by fame, fortune, and controversy. Whether it's wild statements on social media, legal troubles outside the octagon, or now a political campaign that never existed, McGregor has consistently found ways to dominate headlines, even when not actively competing. In Sonnen's eyes, however, this one crossed into pure delusion, and true to form, he had no hesitation in calling it out for what it was: a spectacle, but not reality. Move on to another news. The middleweight division continues to heat up as Reinier De Ridder sets his sights firmly on UFC gold, but Khamzat Chimaev isn't impressed. De Ridder, the former One Championship double champion, was originally scheduled to face Anthony "Fluffy" Hernandez at UFC Vancouver. That fight, however, was scrapped when Hernandez was forced to withdraw due to injury. The news left De Ridder disappointed, but not deterred. Speaking in an interview with MMA Junkie, he explained how the situation unfolded and why he believes his path to a title fight remains intact. "It was a big letdown," De Ridder admitted. "It was a shame. Fluffy has a really cool skill set and he came in with a lot of hype. So, I was very sad he pulled out. Honestly, there were a couple of days when I didn't expect anyone anyone to step up. Nobody wanted to fight. According to De Ridder, the UFC attempted to line him up against Paulo Costa as a replacement, but negotiations quickly fell apart. "We tried Costa," he explained, "but Costa wanted it on his own terms, so that didn't happen. I'm very, very grateful that Brendan Allen took the call." Now, with Allen stepping up as his opponent, De Ridder is confident that an impressive win will be enough to secure him the next middleweight title shot, one he expects to be against Khamzat Chimaev. When asked directly whether he believed a dominant victory over Allen could leapfrog him past Nassourdine Imavov in the rankings, De Ridder didn't hesitate. "Nah," he said firmly, "I'm next." That confidence didn't go unnoticed. Imavov responded by reposting De Ridder's comments on X, adding nothing but a yawning emoji, a not-so-subtle jab at De Ridder's confidence. But it was Khamzat Chimaev's response that truly grabbed attention. The reigning middleweight champion took to Instagram to dismiss De Ridder's comments with just 2 words, "Doesn't matter." Chimaev's response was classic: bores, short, direct, and confident. For Chimaev, it makes no difference who stands across from him, as he has repeatedly claimed he will smash anyone in his path. His track record so far has done little to prove otherwise, with his aggressive wrestling, relentless pressure, and unshakable self-belief overwhelming nearly every opponent he has faced. This exchange adds another layer of intrigue to an already crowded middleweight title picture, with fighters like De Ridder, Imavov, and even Paulo Costa all angling for a crack at the belt. The question is no longer whether Chimaev will have challengers, but who will earn the right to face him first. For De Ridder, the answer seems clear: defeat Brendan Allen in decisive fashion and remove any doubt. For Chimaev, the message is equally clear: whoever comes next is irrelevant, the outcome will be the same. As UFC Vancouver approaches, all eyes will be on De Ridder to see if he can back up his confident prediction and set the stage for a blockbuster showdown with Chimaev in the near future. Move on to another news. Performance-enhancing drugs have long been one of the most controversial topics in combat sports, and according to Daniel Cormier and Aljamain Sterling, the issue hasn't disappeared. Fighters are still finding ways to beat the system. On a recent discussion, the two former champions shared their candid thoughts about performance enhancers in the sport, with the conversation centering around Yoel Romero's recent appearance at BKFC. At 48 years old, Romero's physique and explosive athleticism still look remarkably similar to how he appeared during his UFC prime, and that raised eyebrows for both Cormier and Sterling. "Especially when you know everybody's cheating," Sterling began. "That's what it felt like. Back then they were all cheating. They were so strong. Man, everybody be cheating." He went on to suggest that the problem hasn't gone away. "Most people in MMA still cheat. They're still cheating today." Cormier jumped in, pointing to Romero as an example. "Did you see Yoel Romero? My man doesn't even have a neck. He's still a savage," Cormier said with a mixture of admiration and skepticism. "He's always looked big, but come on, man, you're 48 years old and you still look like that? That's not an old man you want to play with." Sterling agreed, highlighting how unusual it is for fighters approaching 50 years old to maintain such a chiseled physique. "He's nearly 49. That's not what normal aging looks like," Sterling said. "That's the kind of body that makes you question what's really going on behind the scenes." The conversation then shifted to Romero's current career. After leaving the UFC, Romero has continued to compete in other organizations, including bare-knuckle events and promotions often described as dirty boxing. While the exact name of the promotion caused some confusion between Cormier and Sterling, with both referencing Mike Perry's BKFC and other similar platforms, the focus remained on Romero's longevity and physical condition. Cormier and Sterling weren't directly accusing Romero of wrongdoing, but their broader point was clear: fighters in MMA and combat sports as a whole are still finding ways to bend the rules. Despite the implementation of USADA testing and stricter regulations, the former champions believe that certain athletes are skilled at hiding their use of banned substances. This is far from the first time questions about PEDs have surfaced in the sport. Over the years, several big names in MMA have failed tests or been suspended for violations, yet the issue never fully disappears. With fighters like Romero showcasing seemingly ageless physiques and performances, the debate reignites each time a veteran athlete defies the natural limits of aging. As Sterling summed it up, "The reality is harsh. They're still cheating. Fighters are always going to find ways to get an edge. The testing gets better, but so do the ways around it." For fans and fighters alike, the discussion highlights the ongoing tension between athletic achievement and fair play. As long as combat sports continue to feature athletes performing at superhuman levels, questions about PEDs are certain to follow. Move on to another news. As UFC 320 draws near, Alex Pereira once again finds himself at the center of conversation, not for his devastating striking, but for his weight. Just 2 weeks before his scheduled rematch with Magomed Ankalaev, Pereira revealed in a social media video that he was weighing 234 pounds. Considering the light heavyweight limit is 205 pounds, this sparked immediate concern. Cutting nearly 30 pounds in such a short period is no small task, and fans began questioning whether Pereira was putting his body at risk. Former UFC middleweight champion and current analyst Michael Bisping, however, isn't buying into the panic. In his view, Pereira's claim isn't necessarily as alarming as it seems. In fact, it might just be a case of gamesmanship. You've got to remember, Alex Pereira is a bit of a troll, Bisping explained. He enjoys playing around online, getting people talking. Everyone knows your body weight can fluctuate a lot, sometimes by 10 pounds or more in a single day, depending on what you eat and drink. If you load up on water or finish a big meal, the scale is going to show that. Bisping pointed out that the timing of the video was key. He suspects Pereira intentionally stepped on the scale after eating and drinking heavily to inflate the number and stir up conversation. I guarantee that clip was filmed at the end of the day. He'd probably just finished dinner and maybe even downed close to a gallon of water before stepping on the scale. That alone could add a surprising amount of weight. For a guy his size, it's not unrealistic. Beyond physiology, Bisping believes there was a psychological element at play. Pereira, known for his stone-cold demeanor inside the octagon, has also demonstrated a mischievous side outside of it. Recently, he shared another video pranking fellow fighter Renato Moicano, showing that he isn't above some lighthearted mind games. This isn't the first time Pereira has had fun with the media and the fans, Bisping continued. He knows how to push buttons and get people talking. More importantly, he knows how to get inside an opponent's head. By claiming to be that heavy just 2 weeks out, he could be trying to give Ankalaev a false sense of confidence, making him believe the weight cut will be brutal and maybe that Pereira won't show up at 100%. Bisping stressed that fighters often manipulate public perception leading up to a fight. The fight game, after all, isn't just about physical preparation but also mental warfare. I don't believe for a second he's walking around at 234 in a way that should concern anyone, Bisping concluded. This is more about creating headlines and playing mind games than it is about an actual weight issue. In short, while fans might be quick to worry about Pereira's massive cut, Bisping suggests that this is simply another case of Pereira controlling the narrative. For him, the two-division champion is right on track and as dangerous as ever heading into UFC 320.